Welcome, the Lord's chosen. The system doesn't fear the unqualified, it fears the uncontrollable. That single truth explains more than most success stories ever will. Because behind every polished resume, every framed certificate, and every carefully rehearsed expert, there's an unspoken rule at work. Power is only rewarded when it's predictable, and when someone shows up sharp, effective, and impossible to trace back to a school, a mentor, or a program, the room goes quiet. Not impressed quiet, nervous quiet. Here's a fact most people never hear out loud. The majority of leadership pipelines are designed to reduce variance, not produce excellence. Studies on organizational behavior consistently show that institutions favor candidates who conform quickly over those who think independently, even when the independent ones outperform. It's not about talent, it's about risk management. You don't get promoted for being exceptional, you get promoted for being safe. Now imagine someone walking into that environment who wasn't trained, wasn't polished, and wasn't programmed. No official endorsements, no borrowed authority, just results, presence, and a way of seeing things that doesn't come from manuals. That's not inspiring to a system. That's a liability with legs. This is where the confusion starts. Someone in a suit leans back, squints a little, and asks the question they weren't prepared to ask. Who trained them? Not out of curiosity, out of self-protection. Because if nobody trained you, then nobody controls you. And if nobody controls you, then all the rules they rely on suddenly feel optional. There's a bit of dark humor in it too. The same system that ignored you, stalled you, or quietly pushed you aside is now trying to figure out how you got this far without their stamp of approval. It's like watching a security guard panic because someone walked in without a badge and still knows exactly where everything is. This isn't a story about rebellion or ego. It's about what happens when pressure becomes the teacher, when correction replaces instruction, and when real life does the training no institution wants to take responsibility for. And once you understand that, the question stops being who trained them and becomes something far more uncomfortable for everyone else in the room. Number one, they weren't trained because no institution could afford the liability. Nobody likes to admit this, but institutions don't train people to become powerful. They train people to become predictable. The moment someone shows signs of independent thinking, sharp intuition, or an unwillingness to follow scripts, they become a risk, not because they are wrong, but because they cannot be managed. Systems survive on repeatable outcomes. They invest in people who can be shaped, copied, and scaled. You couldn't be. From early on, you didn't absorb ideas the way others did. You examined them. You pushed back, not out of rebellion, but because something didn't sit right. That alone puts a target on you. Training programs, mentorships, and hierarchies are built with guardrails. They assume obedience before mastery. You skipped that step, and in doing so, you became expensive. One wrong move from someone like you doesn't just break rules, it exposes weak ones. There's also the issue of blame. Institutions like clean lines of responsibility. If they train you, they own your success and your failure. But someone who thinks independently, acts decisively, and questions authority can't be neatly claimed. If you succeed, you outgrow them. If you fail, you embarrass them. Either way, you're a liability, so you were left alone, not ignored, not forgotten, quietly excluded. Opportunities that seemed meant for you stalled for no clear reason. Doors closed without explanation. People sensed your potential but didn't know where to place you. You didn't fit the mold, and creating a new one was too much risk. What replaced formal training was pressure. Real-world consequences became your instructor. You learned fast because you had to. No safety nets meant every choice mattered. While others were being guided, you were being tested. That kind of development doesn't come with certificates or applause, but it produces something rare: judgment. When someone in a suit asks who trained you, what they're really asking is which system can take credit. And the answer makes them uneasy, because the truth is you were shaped outside their control, and that's the one thing they never know how to handle. Number 2, their growth came from correction, not instruction. They weren't handed lessons on how to navigate life, relationships, or power. They weren't guided through a curated curriculum designed to protect feelings or pad egos. Every insight, every skill, every ounce of judgment was earned through correction. Not the gentle, polite kind that comes with applause or encouragement, but the brutal, relentless kind that leaves scars, forces reflection, and demands adaptation. Life itself became the teacher, and the syllabus was unforgiving. When someone grows through instruction, they learn how to follow steps, how to anticipate outcomes, and how to mimic success. That creates competence, but it rarely creates mastery. They, on the other hand, had to learn the hard way. Each failure was a lesson, each setback a tutor. Mistakes weren't just tolerated, they were unavoidable, and they often came with consequences that tested everything about them. Over time, that repetition rewired their approach to challenges. They didn't just learn what works, they learned what doesn't, and why. Correction is personal, immediate, and immersive. It doesn't allow excuses or shortcuts. It exposes weakness in real time and forces the development of resilience and strategy simultaneously. That kind of learning builds instinct, not just knowledge. It produces intuition that feels natural because it has been repeatedly forged under pressure. It teaches patience because you quickly realize that rushing leads to correction, and correction comes with a cost you can't ignore. They also learned accountability in a way no mentor or handbook could enforce. When no one is there to soften the blow or sugarcoat reality, you own your choices completely. Every misstep, every misjudgment, every miscalculation becomes an internalized lesson, something no external trainer could replicate. That's the kind of growth that sticks, the kind that can't be undone by opinion, popularity, or circumstance. In the end, this form of development creates people who aren't just capable. They are aware, precise, and unshakable. They don't depend on guidance or approval. They have been corrected so many times, and in so many unforgiving ways, that they no longer fear challenge. They anticipate it, and they rise because they know correction is merely a signal pointing toward mastery. Number 3, they developed judgment before technique. Most people spend years learning how to do things before they learn why or when to do them. They memorize processes, follow instructions, and perfect techniques. But their decisions are often shallow, predictable, and vulnerable the moment circumstances shift. The chosen one didn't get that luxury. They were thrown into situations where the wrong move carried consequences and the right move wasn't spelled out. That forced them to develop judgment first. They learned to read situations, understand people, and anticipate outcomes before they even thought about mastering a skill. Technique without judgment is dangerous. It's a sword in inexperienced hands. The chosen one recognized this early. They weren't interested in showing off moves or collecting skills for vanity. Every ability had to earn its place through discernment. They observed patterns others overlooked, sensed motives hidden behind words, and calculated risks instinctively. While others were busy practicing execution, they were practicing choice. That choice became sharper, faster, and more reliable than any skill alone could offer. This kind of development creates a rare kind of confidence. It isn't loud or boastful because it doesn't need external validation. It's quiet, internal, and precise. When the chosen one acts, It's not because they've rehearsed the steps. They act because they know in that moment exactly what is required. That understanding comes from repeated testing of judgment under pressure, learning which decisions lead to failure and which produce results, and internalizing lessons no textbook could teach. By prioritizing judgment first, they bypass the trap most skilled people fall into, looking competent but being easily misled. They can adapt on the fly, improvise when systems break, and make the impossible look simple. Every skill they acquire afterward is enhanced by the foundation of discernment. Technique becomes an extension of wisdom, not a replacement for it. In the end, they aren't impressive because of what they can do. They are formidable because of what they know to do, even when the rules don't exist. Judgment came first, and every skill, every move, every decision flows naturally from it. That's what makes them untouchable in a world that trains everyone else backward. Number 4, nobody shaped them because they questioned the shape itself. Most people are molded because they accept the mold. They step into the structures that exist, follow the paths laid out, and adjust their edges to fit the system. The chosen one never did that. From the beginning, they questioned the very framework people were trying to impose. They didn't just resist instruction, they analyzed it, dissected it, and often ignored it entirely if it didn't make sense. That kind of thinking is terrifying to anyone invested in control. Systems and mentors alike thrive on predictability. Someone who questions the foundation threatens that predictability. Because they refuse to conform, nobody could shape them. Guidance only works when it's accepted, when the student allows themselves to be bent and polished. The chosen one wasn't interested in being polished. They didn't reject advice out of arrogance. They rejected it out of discernment. Every suggestion, every standard, every expectation was measured against reality, not authority. They didn't adopt models blindly. They tested, adapted, and evolved on their own terms. That autonomy made them unpredictable, uncomfortable, and in many ways, untouchable. This lack of external shaping forced an accelerated internal development. They had to define their own principles, create their own standards, and navigate consequences without the safety net of a mentor or system. While others were learning to follow instructions, they were learning to interpret life itself, to see the rules that mattered and discard the ones that didn't. That independence became a strength. It created clarity of purpose, decisiveness under pressure, and a perspective that outsiders can rarely grasp. By questioning the shape itself, they became more than skilled. They became original. Their actions, decisions, and strategies aren't copies of someone else's teaching. They are solutions born from reality, refined by instinct, and tested by consequences. That's why they can move through spaces and leave an impact without ever having been trained. Their uniqueness isn't accidental. It's the direct result of refusing to be shaped by anyone else. In a world that molds the majority, questioning the mold becomes the ultimate power. Number 5, they became self-reliant too early, and it rewired them. Most people learn dependence first. They rely on mentors, systems, and networks to guide decisions, protect them from mistakes, and soften the consequences of failure. The chosen one never had that luxury. From early on, they were forced to handle situations alone, make decisions without safety nets, and bear the full weight of their choices. That kind of early self-reliance doesn't just teach responsibility. It rewires the way you think, act, and perceive the world. Being forced to stand on your own creates a kind of clarity most people never experience. There's no room for excuses or procrastination because no one else is going to fix your mistakes. You learn to trust your own judgment because there's no alternative. Every decision, every success, and every failure belongs entirely to you. That ownership produces a level of confidence that can't be borrowed, faked, or taught. It becomes instinctive. Self-reliance also sharpens resilience in ways that instruction never can. Systems shield, mentors guide, and programs slow down exposure to failure. They cushion the blows, making risk safer. The chosen one faced risk directly, over and over, without intervention. That constant pressure honed their ability to adapt quickly, read situations accurately, and act decisively. Mistakes weren't just learning moments. They were urgent tests that demanded immediate correction, forcing growth at a speed few can imagine. Early independence also cultivates creativity and resourcefulness. When no one is there to provide answers, you must find solutions in real time. You learn to see angles others miss, to improvise under pressure, and to act decisively even when stakes are high. That combination of clarity, resilience, and ingenuity becomes part of your very identity. In the end, self-reliance too early doesn't make life easier, it makes life sharper. It produces people who don't wait for instruction, who don't require validation, and who can navigate chaos with a quiet, unshakable authority. That rewiring doesn't just prepare you for challenges, it makes you someone who challenges systems themselves. The chosen one isn't dependent. They are autonomous, and that autonomy has made them unstoppable. Number 6, their confidence isn't loud because it wasn't borrowed. Most people's confidence is borrowed. They repeat phrases they've heard, mimic attitudes they've observed, and perform skills that someone else taught them. It's visible, often loud, and sometimes impressive at first glance, but fragile under pressure. The chosen one's confidence is entirely different. It wasn't handed to them through validation, mentorship, or training. It was forged through experience, struggle, and self-reliance. That's why it's quiet, deliberate, and unshakable. When confidence is borrowed, it relies on external factors, approval, recognition, or comparison. Remove those, and it falters. The chosen one never depended on anyone else to approve their actions. They made decisions, faced consequences, and learned lessons entirely on their own. Every success was earned, every failure endured, and every judgment tested. That kind of confidence doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't crave acknowledgement because it's rooted in truth, not perception. This authenticity creates a subtle power that people often underestimate. Others might mistake their silence for inexperience, their composure for passivity. But that calm exterior is a signal of mastery, not meekness. They don't need to dominate conversations, display accomplishments, or perform bravado. The quiet assurance in their presence communicates more than words ever could. It unsettles people who rely on noise and spectacle to mask insecurity. Confidence built this way also adapts. It's not rigid or performative. It flows naturally from capability, insight, and judgment. When challenges arise, it doesn't waver because it isn't dependent on recognition. It's reinforced by lived truth. Every decision they make, every move they take, is guided by internal authority rather than external validation. That's why they are consistently effective, regardless of circumstance. In the end, their confidence isn't loud because it doesn't need to be. It wasn't borrowed, it wasn't taught, and it isn't fragile. It exists independently, unshakable, precise, and entirely authentic. It's the kind of confidence that commands respect silently, unsettles the unprepared, and moves through the world untouched by doubt. That is what makes them incomparable to anyone who has only learned to project power instead of living it. Number 7, they learn by failing in public, not practicing in private. Most people are taught in controlled environments. They rehearse, practice, and prepare in safe spaces where mistakes are hidden and consequences are minimal. The chosen one had no such luxury. Every misstep was visible, every error had immediate impact, and every failure was public. That exposure wasn't a punishment. It was education. Learning under pressure, with eyes on them and stakes high, created a type of resilience and clarity that private practice could never achieve. Failing in public forces rapid adaptation. There's no time to rationalize, excuse, or delay. You confront the mistake, understand it, and correct it in real time. Over time, this builds a sharp instinct for anticipating outcomes, reading situations, and making decisions that work under scrutiny. While others spent years perfecting moves behind closed doors, the chosen one honed their judgment in the arena of reality. Every setback became a tool, every miscalculation a lesson that couldn't be ignored or postponed. This process also develops a kind of fearless composure. Most people fear failure because it threatens reputation, comfort, or position. The chosen one learned early that public failure is temporary, but competence gained from it is permanent. The pressure of visibility forces accountability, accelerates learning, and cultivates a level of precision few can match. It teaches humility without eroding confidence, because lessons are internalized rather than theorized. Learning this way produces people who act decisively under scrutiny. They don't second-guess themselves when stakes are high because they've been tested in the worst possible conditions repeatedly. Public mistakes became proof of capability, not weakness. They understand that performance isn't about perfection. It's about responding intelligently when imperfection is unavoidable. In the end, this kind of education separates the ordinary from the exceptional. Private practice can teach skill, but public correction builds instinct, composure, and authority. The chosen one isn't impressive because they avoided failure. They are formidable because they transformed every public misstep into a stepping stone, and they carry that wisdom silently, with the confidence of someone who has been tempered by reality itself. Number 8. They don't fit hierarchies because they grew outside them. Most people are groomed to climb ladders, follow steps, and earn approval in predictable increments. Systems are designed to reward conformity, measured progress, and obedience. The chosen one never fit into that framework. They weren't shaped to move from one level to the next. They moved on their own terms. Growing outside the hierarchy rewired their understanding of power, authority, and influence. They didn't seek permission or validation. They created space where none existed. Hierarchies exist to manage risk, maintain order, and ensure predictability. Someone who bypasses that structure becomes unsettling. The chosen one's authority isn't granted by rank or title. It's recognized because of ability, presence, and insight. They've learned to operate without a ladder, without endorsements, and without someone else defining what their next step should be. That independence is disorienting to those who depend on formal progression. They see someone moving fluidly, making decisions, and commanding respect outside the expected channels, and it challenges everything they believed about control. Operating outside hierarchies also forces innovation. When you can't rely on systems or chains of command, you learn to solve problems directly, adapt quickly, and anticipate obstacles before they even appear. There's no one to approve your methods or correct your path. Success and failure are immediate, unfiltered, and entirely your responsibility. That experience develops a kind of strategic agility most people never achieve because they're too busy following protocols. This independence also creates a quiet authority. They don't need to broadcast rank or credentials because their presence alone signals capability. They can move in environments designed to reward compliance and still command respect because their value is inherent, not assigned. That makes them dangerous to traditional structures and nearly impossible to predict. In the end, growing outside hierarchies doesn't make life easier. It makes influence real and unshakable. The chosen one isn't impressive because they earned a title. They're formidable because they bypassed the title entirely, rewired the rules for themselves, and operate from a space few even recognize. Their authority exists independently of anyone else, and that freedom makes them unstoppable. Number 9, they carry pattern recognition, not rules. Most people are taught to follow rules. They memorize steps, adhere to procedures, and rely on instructions to navigate life. Rules are comforting because they offer certainty, but they're limited. They break when situations change, when conditions shift, or when variables appear that no one accounted for. The chosen one didn't rely on rules. They carry pattern recognition. They see behaviors, repetitions, and tendencies. They notice cause and effect in ways that textbooks, manuals, or instructions can never teach. That ability makes them far more effective than anyone who only knows the rules. Pattern recognition is instinctive. It's understanding that certain actions produce predictable results, that people respond the same way under similar pressures, and that systems reveal weaknesses if observed closely. The chosen one doesn't need to be told what to do because they've already studied the flow of events, consciously or unconsciously. They anticipate outcomes and adjust before anyone else realizes a problem exists. That foresight isn't taught. It's developed through repeated observation, experience, and attention to subtle cues that most ignore. This skill also makes them adaptive. Rules are rigid. Break them, and you risk failure or punishment. Patterns are flexible. Once you recognize them, you can navigate entirely new situations without relying on memorized instructions. The chosen one can move through chaos with a calm precision because they've internalized how systems function, how people behave, and how situations unfold. That knowledge allows them to act decisively, even when the environment is unfamiliar or volatile. Pattern recognition also gives them strategic insight. They can predict behavior, spot opportunities, and identify threats before others even see them. While others scramble to apply rigid rules, they flow effortlessly, using observation and understanding as their guide. That's why their presence feels unsettling to trained experts. They're not following a script, they're improvising with mastery, and they're always one step ahead. In the end, carrying pattern recognition instead of rules makes them autonomous, resilient, and profoundly effective. They don't just survive in complex situations, they dominate them, not by instruction, but by understanding the invisible rhythms that govern every interaction and every outcome. Number 10. They intimidate experts because they ask unteachable questions. Most people are trained to operate within boundaries, to accept frameworks, and to ask questions that have safe, predictable answers. Experts are comfortable with this because it confirms their authority. The chosen one doesn't operate that way. They ask questions that don't have manuals, precedents, or easy answers. Their questions cut to the core of assumptions, reveal hidden flaws, and expose gaps that others never noticed. That's why even the most experienced experts pause, hesitate, or feel unsettled in their presence. These questions aren't about curiosity alone. They're about clarity and insight. They're not asked for show or for approval. Each question is a tool to map reality, to understand systems and people at a level most experts never reach. When the chosen one asks something unteachable, it's not because the answer doesn't exist. It's because the framework around the answer is broken or incomplete. Experts are trained to provide solutions within the confines of their knowledge. The chosen one operates outside those confines, and that alone creates tension. This dynamic also highlights independence. They don't need to rely on expertise to validate their thinking. Instead, they use questions as a means to challenge, refine, and understand. Experts who are used to being unquestioned suddenly find themselves defending assumptions, reconsidering strategies, and facing the limits of their authority. It's uncomfortable because it removes the illusion of control. Moreover, asking unteachable questions accelerates learning and adaptation. The chosen one isn't content with conventional wisdom. They need to know what's real, what works, and what survives under pressure. Each question reveals insight, guides decisions, and uncovers truths that rules and theories can't. That's why their influence feels so different. It doesn't depend on hierarchy, certification, or credentials. In the end, they intimidate because they expose the fragility of expertise. They operate from insight, not instruction. They ask what cannot be taught and force experts to confront the limits of their knowledge. That presence alone is unsettling, and it separates the chosen one from everyone else who simply follows the expected path. They aren't just asking, they are reshaping understanding. Number 11. Their restraint is mistaken for lack of exposure. Most people mistake quiet confidence for inexperience. They assume that if someone doesn't rush to prove themselves, doesn't boast about accomplishments, or doesn't perform for attention, it must mean they haven't seen enough, haven't done enough, or haven't been tested. The chosen one operates differently. Their restraint isn't ignorance, it's strategy. It comes from knowing exactly when to act, what to reveal, and how to conserve energy for moments that truly matter. That calmness, that patience, is a product of deep exposure and repeated trials, not a lack of them. Restraint in this context is not hesitation. It's control. It's understanding that visibility often invites interference, that premature display can create unnecessary enemies, and that most people reveal their weaknesses while trying to impress. The chosen one has learned to observe, to analyze, and to act with precision. Their silence carries weight because it's informed by experience, not inexperience. They know the cost of action, the consequences of exposure, and the value of timing in a way that those eager to prove themselves never will. This kind of restraint also signals mastery. While others scramble to demonstrate skill, knowledge, or power, they operate with calm efficiency. They don't need applause or recognition to validate competence. Every move is deliberate, measured, and impactful. That's why their presence is often misunderstood. People see the quiet demeanor and assume vulnerability, but what they don't realize is that the chosen one has already walked through trials most haven't even imagined, and they emerge stronger and more capable because of it. In addition, restraint preserves energy and focus. By acting only when necessary, they maintain clarity and control, avoiding distractions that derail others. They don't waste effort proving themselves. They channel it into results that speak louder than words. In the end, their restraint is a sign of power, not inexperience. It's a reflection of exposure, wisdom, and understanding. People may misjudge them, underestimate them, or mistake calm for weakness, but the chosen one knows the truth. Silence isn't absence. It's precision, strategy, and unshakable confidence honed through experience. Number 12. They weren't trained because training would have dulled the edge. Training is designed to produce consistency. It standardizes behavior, teaches predictable responses, and smooths out rough edges. Most people crave it because it offers structure, security, and a clear path forward. The chosen one never had that luxury, and in truth, that was the advantage. Formal training would have dulled the very instincts, intuition, and edge that make them formidable. Raw potential thrives in unpredictability, and anything designed to systematize it risks turning instinct into imitation. This is why their effectiveness feels unnatural to others. They don't follow rehearsed formulas or regurgitate learned responses. Every action is original, calculated in real time, and adapted to the moment. If someone had tried to train them, the natural acuity they developed through unfiltered experience would have been compromised. Training would have replaced instinct with protocol, intuition with procedure, and originality with imitation. They avoided this, whether by choice or circumstance, and it allowed their instincts to sharpen rather than be constrained. Being untrained also forces adaptability. When you aren't following a playbook, every scenario demands creative problem solving. The chosen one learns to think independently because there is no manual to rely on. They observe, analyze, and act based on judgment honed through real-world consequences. This method of development produces someone who can pivot fluidly, anticipate outcomes before others, and operate effectively even in chaos. Those shaped by training may know the steps, but they often stumble when situations deviate from the expected. Moreover, avoiding formal training builds confidence rooted in self-reliance. They trust their instincts because experience has been the teacher, not approval or instruction. Every choice, every success, every failure reinforces the understanding that they are capable without external validation. In the end, they weren't trained because they didn't need to be. The edge they carry is honed by raw exposure, correction, and independence. Training would have dulled it, but life sharpened it. That unshakable, instinctive precision is what makes them different, unpredictable, and quietly unstoppable. Number 13. They operate from lived truth, not theoretical confidence. Most people rely on ideas, quotes, strategies, or frameworks they've been taught. Their confidence is theoretical, built on repetition, observation, or borrowed knowledge. It works until reality shifts, until pressure mounts, and until the rules they learned no longer apply. The chosen one operates differently. Their confidence is born from lived truth. Every decision, every skill, and every judgment comes from experience that cannot be faked, taught, or borrowed. It is absolute because it has been tested, challenged, and proven in the real world. Lived truth carries weight that theory never can. People trained to operate on frameworks may sound convincing, but they crumble when circumstances deviate from the expected. The chosen one doesn't crumble. They've been there. They've faced consequences, endured setbacks, and navigated complexity without a safety net. Every action is grounded in reality, and that reality-based confidence shows in everything they do. It's not performative, and it doesn't require applause. It's quiet, precise, and impossible to ignore. Operating from lived truth also makes them resilient under scrutiny. When theories fail, opinions clash, or plans go wrong, the chosen one doesn't panic or overcompensate. They rely on understanding born from personal experience. That clarity allows them to see patterns others miss, anticipate reactions, and act decisively when hesitation would destroy most people. They don't speak to impress, they speak to execute, and their words carry the authority of someone who has seen outcomes unfold firsthand. This grounded confidence is also adaptive. They don't cling to outdated ideas or rigid strategies. If a method fails, they adjust because their understanding isn't anchored in theory. It's anchored in reality. That makes them unpredictable, precise, and consistently effective, while others remain bound by what they were taught to believe. In the end, operating from lived truth separates them from everyone else. They aren't impressive because they've memorized steps. They are formidable because their confidence is inseparable from experience. It's unshakable, authentic, and invisible to anyone who hasn't walked the same path. That truth quietly carried is their power. Carried. Number 14. When someone asks who trained them, the answer scares them. Most people look for explanations. They want to know who shaped someone, who guided them, who can take credit. It makes them feel safe. If a person's skills, judgment, and presence are traceable, they can predict, control, or replicate them. The chosen one breaks that expectation entirely. When someone asks who trained them, the answer is simple: and terrifying. Nobody did. No system, no mentor, no manual. They weren't molded, they weren't guided. They were forged through experience, pressure, and necessity, and that makes them uncontrollable. That reality is unsettling because people are wired to fear what they can't understand or categorize. Systems, hierarchies, and experts rely on cause and effect. They expect growth to be linear, influence to be assigned, and authority to be granted. The chosen one doesn't fit those models. They weren't shaped to follow. They weren't instructed to conform. They developed in a vacuum of external control, which means their abilities, instincts, and judgment are entirely their own. That independence makes them unpredictable, and unpredictability terrifies anyone who thrives on certainty. It's also humbling to witness. People who ask that question are forced to confront a truth they rarely acknowledge. Real capability can't always be trained or taught. Influence, precision, and insight sometimes emerge naturally, under conditions too harsh or too unique for instruction to replicate. The chosen one embodies that rare truth. Their authority doesn't come from approval, training, or recognition. It comes from reality itself. Every decision, every action, every calculated move is proof that life, not instruction, was the teacher. When someone realizes this, it unsettles them because it shifts the power dynamic. There is no controlling authority, no mentor to appeal to, no precedent to rely on. The chosen one exists outside their expectations, and that freedom is both intimidating and enviable. It's why questions about training stop abruptly and silence takes over. They weren't trained, and that is exactly what makes them untouchable, unshakable, and unforgettable. Conclusion. The chosen one isn't a product of mentorship, structured training, or approval. They are the result of reality itself: pressure, correction, independence, and unfiltered experience. Every instinct, every decision, every ounce of confidence comes from navigating challenges with no safety net, no roadmap, and no one to guide them. They operate from lived truth, sharpened by public trials, shaped by circumstance, and fortified by the relentless need to survive and excel. Their judgment precedes skill, their restraint masks depth, and their presence communicates authority that no title or certification could ever replicate. What makes them extraordinary isn't just what they can do. It's the way they exist outside systems, hierarchies, and expectations. They move with precision, clarity, and instinctive understanding, leaving those trained and guided in predictable paths, scrambling to catch up. They question, observe, and adapt in ways that make conventional expertise look limited. The edge they carry is raw, unshakable, and entirely their own. And when people ask who trained them, the truth stops conversations cold. Nobody did. The chosen one learned from life itself, and that is the one truth that terrifies the world around them. This is the essence of being untouchable, not by force, not by noise, but by the relentless development of self, intuition, and reality-tested wisdom. It's rare, it's precise, and it's unstoppable. Those who try to measure it, control it, or replicate it will always fall short, because what defines the chosen one can't be taught, borrowed, or assigned. It can only be lived. If this resonated with you, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Like, comment, and share this video to inspire others and join the conversation. Your support helps spread the lessons of independence, clarity, and true power to everyone ready to step outside the expected path. Stay blessed always.